Good afternoon, everyone. This is Maverine, and today is April 23rd, 2025, and welcome to this day's report from Prophetic News Hour 1. Today we're going to consider the question, where should Jewish people live? And this is a loaded question because it has everything to do with the justification that Islamic terrorists and Muslim nations have used for centuries regarding their hatred toward Jews and their insistence that every Jew in and around the land of Israel is removed. The calls, the demands are for every Jew to be removed from what is considered caliphate, Ottoman land and territory. So my question, and the question that we have to ask ourselves as we are reading the news and listening to the reports and allowing pundits on all sides along every spectrum of opinion and belief to speak into us, the question we must ask ourselves, I believe one of them, is where should the Jews live? Now, many of you might be reactively saying a few things, but here are the two things that I want to point out. You might be reactively saying, well, they can just live anywhere. Just don't colonize or subjugate those who identified as Palestinians. Historically, and in true Israeli experience, that opinion is rooted in a lie. Because Israel is not an apartheid state, as was the nation of South Africa. The correlations there that have been made and promulgated and propagated are false. Nope, Israel is not a perfect civil government or nation, but any belief that Israel is an apartheid nation or Israel is, as was Great Britain toward Ireland and its people for so long, an apartheid and subjugating nation. Any belief in that is rooted on falsehoods. It's rooted on or in revisionist history, and in many ways, just pure ignorance. Ignorance meaning just not knowing. I'm ignorant regarding how to successfully perform a brain surgery. I just don't know. The second argument or reaction that one might have to this question about where should the Jews live is, well, that's not a fair question because the Jews can live anywhere, but the Palestinians can't. Well, I want to share with us today just a brief history of this argument that the Jews may live anywhere. And I'm going to share from a timeline of history that goes back to the 7th century. And so for those of you who are tracking along, the 7th century means 600. The year 601, the year 602. That means 7th century. And I'm going to share with you a bit of a timeline from the history of this argument that Jews rule the world and they may live anywhere, that is being used to justify the terrorist attacks against them around the world now, and the increasing anti-Semitism, especially among those, again, who sit in ivory towers are wealthy and have not ever truly had to experience what Jews throughout history have experienced. 7th century, a Christian, and I'm putting that in air quotes purposefully because these are not Christians, but a Christian group called the Visigoths massacred Jews, and those who would not convert to Christianity were in fact massacred. Now, this form of Christianity is the Roman Catholic Church. In 1096, there were pogroms, Pogroms. There were pogroms in France and in Germany during the First Crusade. So again, during the expansion of the Roman Catholic Church. And those pogroms, again, included imprisonment and massacring and torture for those who refused to cede the land or convert to Catholicism. In 1215, a Lateran council, also of the Roman Catholic brand, implemented what is called an anti-Jewish code, which allowed for several decades of mass arrest of Jews throughout England. In 1290, the year 1290, England expelled all Jews. And so, yes, the Jews again were dispersed. In 1290, after being expelled from England, in 1421, there was a mass expulsion of Jews from Austria. Just 21 years later, there in 1442, there was a mass expulsion of Jews from Bavaria. Then we can just keep going. I'm going to jump to 1481 when the Dominicans set up what is called the Spanish Inquisition. And it burned to death hundreds of Jews over a 12-year period of time. Because again, they would not convert to Catholicism. Let's jump down to the 16th century because there's more throughout the 14th century. Mass expulsion of Jews from Poland, from Lithuania, from Portugal, etc. But let's jump down to the 16th century. In 1516, Venetia decided to confine Jews into a ghetto and charge them special taxes. In 1518, the Ottomans, Islamic Jihad, massacred Jews in and around Hebron. In 1541, Jews were expelled from Napoli. Going to the 17th century, the Russian Tsar, Ivan the Terrible, ordered the drowning of Jews who refused to convert to Christianity. In 1641, thousands of Jews were massacred by peasants throughout Poland and the Ukraine. So just average people, peasants, working people, played a part in massacring thousands of Jews. In 1756, one who is lauded as a leader of thought and philosophy and literature and enlightenment, Voltaire, wrote that Jews are a totally ignorant nation. Those are Voltaire's words. And then not long after, Holbach wrote that Jews are the enemies of the human race. Let's continue because there are more programs throughout the 19th century, throughout the 20th century. 1898, there are anti-Semitic riots throughout Paris and the Algiers. And we're seeing the seeds of that manifest even now throughout Paris, throughout Italy, in and around the nations of Morocco, Algeria, that anti Semitism, that hatred. The Maldives, even recently, has forbidden Israeli citizens or Jews to visit Maldives. In 1904, long before World War II, even before World War I, there were pogroms to expel, segregate, or genocidally murder Jews throughout Russia, Odessa. In 1917, 17,000 Jews, at least that's the number that has been nearly confirmed. Who knows if there were more? 70,000 Jews were murdered by the Mensheviks in Ukraine in 1917. And then in 1919, the Mensheviks hold the Jews responsible for communism and kill 100,000 more Jews. They hold the Jews responsible for communism. In 1924, Hitler's Mein Kampf, which is rooted in large part on the writings of Martin Luther, the Protestant Reformationist who is lauded, is released. And during this time, Jews are being slaughtered throughout what is known as Palestine. Then begins what led up to World War II in earnest, those things about which Winston Churchill warned the world, warned against appeasing and trying to negotiate. And during that time when concentration camps were being established and Hitler was marching forward, and the Grand Mufti of Islam was meeting with Hitler, in 1936, Arabs massacre almost all Jews who were still in Hebron. More massacres throughout Europe during that time, but we're going to move to 1941, where it says the German mobile killing troop killed more than 1 million Jews in 1 year throughout Russia and the Ukraine. Mobile killing troops, moving in their vehicles, probably their armored vehicles, on their motorcycles, but whatever the case may be, much like we see happened on October 7th, 2023 in Israel. They killed, in that 1 year alone, more than 1 million Jews throughout Russia and Ukraine. In 1941, Romanians massacred 200,000 Jews. In an area called Bessarabia, and they burned 30,000 Jews who were alive and living in occupied Odessa, Ukraine. By 1945, of the 9 million Jews in German controlled territory, it says that about 6 million were exterminated. So, with a pre World War II population of what was accounted to be 9.5 million Jews in the area, after World War II, there were accounted to be somewhere around 3.5 million. More than half had been massacred and murdered. And lest we think these things stop there, there have been pogroms and expulsions in modern history, to include in the United States of America, specifically in the areas of New York, throughout Great Britain, certainly in the Muslim territories, and even around and supported by and promulgated by what was and is known as the Roman Catholic Church, and also the Protestant Church. The Protestants have not been without blood on their hands. So, my question again for us today to consider as I share this news: some may not ever have heard this history. And so, again, you are allowing what is revisionist history and emotional lies, weighted down with anti Semitic hatred for Jews, to form your opinion, to form how you respond, to form how you vote, to determine how you use your platform. And I'm speaking to ones like Susan Sarandon, Mark Ruffalo, the Hadid sisters, ones like The Weeknd. You're allowing your platform to be used to promulgate a lie. And you must ask yourselves the question: where should Jews live? And if the answer to that question that you ask of yourself comes with qualifications that dehumanize the right of people with Jewish ancestry to worship Yahweh or not, to operate in marketplace giftings and talents, to teach their history, the truth of it, all of it, and to say no to the demands of Catholicism, Islam, Protestantism, if that's what they want. If your answer to that question comes with qualifications that the Jewish diaspora must bow to those things, then I will say to you that your answer is also rooted in hatred and a lie. It is an impossibility, and ultimately, you are one who is now standing with and feeding the flame that says that Jews should be eradicated from the earth. This should matter to you, to each one of us who has not voiced our support for the Jewish people, who has not voiced our support for the existence of the people, the nation of people called Israel, because they come out of Jacob's house, whose name was changed to Israel. If again you are believing the lie that because there is and have been throughout history wicked things done by people who identify as Jewish, therefore every Jew is wicked, you are on the wrong side of the God of war, who will correct and address all things with his justice. If you have thought that you need not worry about this, why get involved? I've had many friends and loved ones over the years say, I'm just not interested in it. I don't follow politics. then you have made your choice because you're attempting to straddle the fence. The question becomes, whose side are you on? Because you can't float between two or three opinions. A house floating between two or three pieces of sandbar will ultimately crash into the sea and be destroyed, never to be seen again. And so today, I want you all to know that every demand coming out of Islam for the Jewish people to just leave Gaza alone, and if you leave Gaza alone, we will live in peace, has been historically proven to be a lie. Because the ultimate goal, as has been shown throughout history, is to eradicate Jews from the earth. And I want to leave you with just this more recent illustration of what I'm speaking about. Even as Hamas and the PLO are crying wolf and pretending to be victims, as they embed terrorists into NGOs and humanitarian organizations and medical aid groups, they are continuing to initiate attack. Just this past Saturday, Hamas operatives were able to use one of the tunnels that they built, no doubt using millions of dollars, multi-millions of dollars from entities like the U.S. Agency for International Aid and Development and other nonprofits and NGOs. No doubt this tunnel was built with those funds. They were able and did enter into what is reported to be a buffer zone of peace. While Hamas is saying, we're being attacked, help us, save us. Israel is trying to kill us all, and we're not doing anything. We just want peace. They used this tunnel and came out of the tunnel under what is considered, or what was considered, a buffer zone area on the side of a road in the northern Gaza Strip. So if you know the northern Gaza Strip and you've been tracking on the map, the northern area is the area where Israel has insisted upon and is pushing through for a wider buffer zone, because it's through this area they are able to rearm and have access also to Israel, the kibbutzes. These were well-armed Hamas terror operatives. 6 of them emerged from a tunnel underground, and in their well-armed way, they were able to open fire with rocket-propelled grenades at Israeli military vehicles as they were passing by. After they propelled their rocket-propelled grenades toward this Israeli military vehicles, it says that the terror operatives laid a bomb on the side of the road and detonated it when rescue forces arrived to help rescue those who were inside of the military vehicle. Who was inside of the military vehicle? 3 service women. The bomb that they laid, Hamas laid coming out of their tunnel, that's been built as a part of their web with Western money and with oil money, killed more Israeli military people who are just still responding to and trying to buffer and therefore provide peace for their people so that another October 7th massacre does not happen. These are the ones who are saying to the world, we want peace. If Israel will just leave us alone, we'll stop. Well, if that's the case, they should identify every tunnel that has been built. They should, even themselves, demolish the tunnel entries and exits. They should make clear that they truly want peace rather than continuing to act as the cowards and bullies they are. So again, I say to you, Susan Sarandon, Mark Ruffalo, all of you wealthy on your high horse ivory tower ones who are ignorant of real history and devoid of compassion toward a people group who have for history been expelled, massacred, tortured. Consider who you are standing against. Because whether Jews believe it or not, the God of Israel will not be mocked. And for each one who lives by the sword, specifically meaning like these terrorists who again believe that every Jew, every infidel they kill increases their rewards in heaven and nets them payment, money, houses, visas, jobs in this earth. For everyone who lives by the sword, murdering, raping, torturing, and trying to annihilate a people group, they are now and will die by the sword. Hence the Israel nation's response. Hence the reality for why it is unwise and would be self-suicide for Israel to trust Hamas, the PLO, Qatar, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Turkey, and even some within the United States government with their calls for ceasefire and peace. I'll end today's report there. Thank you all for listening. If you have questions, I encourage you to put them in the chat. If you are truly willing to learn more and to not find yourself in a position where you have to personally account for having lived by the sword against people, then I'm willing to talk with you. Join us for the next installment of Prophetic News Hour 1. And until then, I pray for the peace of Yerushalayim. We'll talk soon. And again, I'll put in the link, just the story about this most recent ambush through one of their tunnels, one of the Hamas tunnels, so that you can see that these things are continuing even as mainstream media is still reporting that Hamas and the PLO want peace. We'll talk soon. Take care.